everybody, I am just back from a couple of days at the beach and I wanted to do a quick video because it's a gorgeous day in Baltimore today, and I've been waiting very patiently for the plant that I'm about to teach you about and show you to start blooming, and I had my fingers crossed that when I came home from the beach she would be ready to show off her blooms. And here she is in the background. This is mullein, and mullein is a plant that often people consider a weed and they don't like to have it in their garden, but I am always happy when a mullein plant pops up in my garden. So I'm going to teach you a little bit about the mullein today and tell you a little bit about why I like it so much. So mullein is a biennial, which means that I've been waiting for 2 seasons for this to get flowers. And mullein comes up in your garden. I brought a little one with me, I'll show you down here, who popped up in one of my pots where my mint was growing. So this is what mullein looks like on the first year. It almost looks like a lamb's ear and almost even like a foxglove. So you want to be sure that you know the difference, because if you accidentally pick a foxglove and try to make medicine with it, you could get very sick or die. So a mullein, I really like to wait and make sure 2 seasons go by before I identify it and I harvest from it and pick its flowers, because the flowers are what make mullein really identifiable. So once the flowers start to bloom, which they just did, you get these beautiful yellow blooms on top of your plant, and that way you'll know that it's a mullein. You can see this one's pretty tall. As a matter of fact, it's almost taller than me. It's in a raised bed actually, so it's a little higher, but it will continue to grow. So there are a few things you can do with mullein. Mullein is a really good respiratory tonic plant, and so the leaves are really excellent for that. So as you go through the season, you can just take some of the newer, smaller leaves on. At the bottom, you'll see they do get bigger and they get a little bit eaten up by bugs, because bugs do like to munch on them. So try to harvest the smaller ones. And if you look really closely, or if you see one of these plants, you'll be able to tell that they have little hairs on them. They're very soft. That's why people confuse them with lamb's ear, because they're so soft. And the little hairs can be an irritant to both your skin if you try to use one topically and when you drink it. So I'll tell you about a preparation in a minute, and you need to be sure that you really strain it well because of the little hairs. So there are 2 things that you can harvest. You can harvest the leaves and you can harvest the blooms. The leaves can be used to make a tincture or a tea. And if you decide to make a tea or a tincture with it, you do really want to strain it. So you can pluck the leaves off, dry them, give them a little time to lay flat on a nice flat surface to dry. And once they're dry, you can create a hot tea out of them. In the wintertime is probably when you're going to want it, because mullein is a demulcent, which means that it helps to moisten your airways, your nasal passages. It's a little bit like the marshmallow plant in that it helps to moisten all of those areas. So you can make a tea out of that, and I can share some more specific recipes later. But you can also make a tincture, which is what I plan to do with it this year as well, and steep it in some alcohol to get the benefits of this plant. And then the other part that you can harvest are the blossoms actually, and you can pick these little tiny beautiful yellow flowers off. The bugs and bees love them, so I try to leave a few for the bugs and the bees. And you can make an oil out of those. So you might want to take about a 1/4 cup of the blossoms. They take a while to bloom. As you can see, part of them, they're just starting to bloom, and then these in the next couple of days or weeks will start to open as well. And then steep them in olive oil, just enough to cover the blossoms up. Then strain it out, and you can use that as an ear oil for an ear infection. Now you want to make sure it's just an ear infection and not a swimmer's ear, because that can actually make the infection worse. And if you have a ruptured eardrum, that can also make it worse. But if you know you've just got a mild ear infection going on, or your kids have one, you can take that mullein oil that's been steeped for a few weeks and strain, and then you can drop it 1 or 2 drops in each ear, because ear infections can go back and forth between the ears, and you got yourself covered. So I'm about to harvest a little bit of it later. One thing I really love about mullein is that it's not a picky grower. If you go on a drive anytime soon, take a look on the side of the highway, because you'll see all of these yellow stalks popping up, and now you know what they are. They're mullein. And it grows in disturbed sort of edgy areas. And as you can see, we're on the edge of the woods right where we live. And last year we had no mullein that was blooming. We had none. And this year, some of the seeds from the plants 2 years ago, they decided to come up, and I've got 2 plants behind me here. There's a third one growing in the back of the raised bed, and then I have another one in a rock garden up in the other part of the yard. And then I have some more growing. So I'm anticipating that I should probably put some of this stuff away because Maya Toll, the herbalist, says that mullein grows where she's needed, which means that I'm guessing we're gonna have some respiratory stuff and maybe some ear infections this winter. So I'll be putting some of this mullein up and preserving a little bit of it to use in the winter. So if you have any questions, you can drop them in the comments, but hopefully you have a little bit of this, and if one of them pops up for you, don't pull it out, let it grow. You can also let it bloom, and then the birds will happily eat all of the bugs and the seeds and things over the winter and enjoy it throughout the whole season. All right, be well and be happy.